Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you locally by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. You can check that out wherever you listen to your podcasts. He joins us for another edition of Football at 4 right now here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, the streaming video on our YouTube channel. What's going on, Moshe?
How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing very well. We've got Eagles-Washington, which might be, the most juiced up for a football game most people have been in quite some time around here.
It's funny. I agree with you. I think there was a lot of anticipation for this game, especially, last year there was no playoffs. There was no realistic shot of it. This year there is, and this is supposed to be kind of a big game for both teams. But as we get deeper into the week, it's looking like the juice that everybody had for the game might be tempered a little bit because of all of the already somebody hit me up on Twitter saying, should this game just have an asterisk next to it because, you're finding less and less players that might be available for the game.
Yeah, there's a lot on the Washington side, obviously. Let's take a look at the Eagles side of things. We got a lot of limited participants coming out of the bye week. Let's start with Jalen Hurts. And what signs did you get today from the head coach? He said they split reps, Hurts and Minshew, and essentially, it's because he's not ready to say Hurts is ready. Was that surprising to you?
Not really. The uncertainty there is not surprising to me. He did not, Nick has not really been forth. Yeah, I mean, he just hasn't given you a whole lot of information about injuries. And I don't think he's being dishonest. I think he's just, as he even says, competitive advantage. It doesn't help for them to overflow the media with information. And he said going into the break, that he felt that Jalen Hurts was he was hopeful that Jalen Hurts would be ready to go, but he couldn't declare definitely that he'd be ready to play. He just said he was the starter when healthy. And as I had told you, last time we spoke about it, and I had reported on the pregame show leading into the game against the Jets, his injury, the ankle injury, was really severe for him. And the pain stretched all the way back to his heel, and that it wasn't just about running, but it was also about being able to plant that leg and throw, the left leg and throw. And those were giving him difficulties. And we know that with severe ankle injuries, it's usually more than a week. It could be 2, 3, or 4.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't shock me that they're in a phase right now that they're still waiting to see more healing and see how he can look when he's on the field. I don't know if you saw the video that John Clark tweeted out of Jalen Hurts walking into the bubble, but you can see he's got a hitch in the gait there.
All right, with that then, I mean, I think most people just took for granted that he almost played last week, and maybe they just wanted to give him the week off and then the bye. Would you say it's like 50-50 that he plays this week?
I think that's a pretty good, as we sit here today, description of it. I know some people think that this is gamesmanship, that he's definitely playing and that the Eagles are just keeping it quiet. I don't believe that to be true. As I mentioned, that gate, that hitch is real. And at the same time, I don't think that what you heard today should be interpreted as he's definitely not playing and Gardner Minshew is, even though that the last time when they were in this situation against the Jets, it was clear that Minshew, as the week went on, was going to be the starter. They're just now, they did their walkthrough today. They didn't have a real practice. Tomorrow and Friday are big days where the answer will become more clear. So, yes, as we sit here today, I think it's more of a 50-50 proposition.
Well, yeah. Just the fact that Minshew got some reps, I think at least says to me, hey, we better be prepared that he cannot play, right? I mean, because they went through this last week and saw where this was going. Now, you said this video. I didn't see the John Clark video, but obviously if he's kind of still the way you kind of describe that is when somebody has an ankle injury, for them to come back in 2 weeks is kind of rare.
Yeah, especially if it's a high ankle, right? Or if it's an ankle we got an ankle here, but there's also something going on. So we've got to just see how he's able to be over and respond to more treatment over the next few days. But I think your assessment is right that they've got to get Gardner Minshew ready just in case, and that's what they're doing again. And I would also say this: if Jalen Hurts does play, and now we're projecting a little bit, it's hard for me to think that between now and Sunday, even if he does play, you snap your fingers, he's on 100%. So there'll probably be some, even if he does suit up and play, he might not be the spry, dynamic athlete that he normally has been when he's been out there healthy.
All right, Geoff Mosher, let's look at a couple other injuries because the injury report's kind of long today. Two of them that are kind of important. Let's go to the running backs. And Jordan Howard, who's missed 2 games with a knee. Miles Sanders, who, look, he got hurt in the Jets game, and he grabbed that ankle, and that thing looked like, the way that he grabbed it, it seemed that something bothered him immediately. So
Yeah.
Howard, Sanders, Sirianni said they're both trending upwards. He also said that about Hurts, but that doesn't necessarily mean trending upwards means you're going to play.
Right. Or nor does it mean that if you do play, you are, again, 100% of what you're supposed to be. The interesting one to me is Jordan Howard. It's a knee sprain. It's been 2 weeks already, and then the bye week. So he has had several weeks. The fact that he's a limited participant, as far as that would be if they really did practice today, that would be their estimation. He still wouldn't have been full and ready to go, suggests that it's not a given he's going to be able to play. Again, it's trending upward. The arrow's there. So we'll see in the next day or two if the response is better, if he's more than limited. But you would have liked to have seen him. There's 2 things you would have liked to have heard from Nick Sirianni today that you didn't hear. One, that Howard's ready to go and he's fine. And the second thing is Brandon Brooks. I'm pretty sure I have to go back and look that he went into the bye week saying he promised he would have an update on Brandon Brooks once they got back from the bye. And his update on Brandon Brooks today was that there's really no update. So I don't know what that means.
Yeah, he actually opened up today's press conference. That was the first question. What's the Brandon Brooks update? No change, continuing to progress. If his status changes, I'll let you guys know. That doesn't sound like he's going to be suiting up on Sunday.
No, it certainly does not.
All right, so Herbig's in that spot, right? Because Driscoll's done, so you got Herbig in that spot. All right, we'll see. All right, well, the other injury, I guess, the only other one that kind of stands out, I guess, is the neck for Barnett, because as much as Barnett frustrates people, they don't have a lot of depth at that position.
Right. Although, if I'm not mistaken, Mike, I think he was on the injury report leading up to the Jets game with a neck as far as limited, and I think he was able to practice later in the week. So maybe it's something that he's got in there that he gets treatment on every week, and that's why they put him as limited. Because if you get treatment on something, you have to be be listed on the injury report. Although I'm sure teams figure out a way to fudge that. But remember when Alshon Jeffrey had the shoulder thing all year long in 2017 and never appeared on the injury report?
Yeah.
Then he had to have surgery afterward. It's like, was he not getting treatment for that?
Right.
Or he was just. But either way, I'm not too alarmed yet with Derek Barnett there, because I've seen him listed here before and be able to play.
Okay, everybody else is rest, essentially. The only other guy was Steve Nelson. He was a full participant with that shoulder injury that he had a couple of weeks ago, but he did play last week. Johnson with rest. Fletcher Cox, he had rest. And Jason Kelsey also rest/ankle, but we would imagine he'd be good to go. The Eagles
imagine getting rest after you just had a bye week. I thought this Wednesday thing where they were doing walkthroughs was not going to continue. I thought it was a smart idea, right? You have a bye week so late in the year, it's hard to keep guys fresh, and it seemed to be working. But I was also of the impression that when you came back from the bye, you would actually have a normal practice on Wednesday, and some of this rest stuff would go away. But hey, more rest. Why not?
It sounds like Sirianni has kind of like gotten into a routine, and this is part of the routine, like a walkthrough Wednesday. These guys rest. Like it feels like he has just found what his routine is. Like for years we say, hey, Andy must, whatever he's doing after the bye week, he must be doing something right, because they, it sounds as if he has found his routine.
Well, I'll tell you what they've definitely found, and I don't mean to take credit away from Sirianni, but this is a little bit bigger than him. One thing I've heard about this team is that they have really followed the advice of their upper sports medicine people. They brought in Ted Rath. He's their VP of player performance, and Tom Hunkley, I forget the pronunciation of it. He's their VP of sports medicine. One of those guys, I think Ted Rath, came from the Rams, and the Rams, they never practice. They never practice like longer than an hour and a half in training camp. They do a lot of the things the Eagles did have been good at because they're among the leaders usually in not having players miss games to injury since McVay got there. Well, a lot of that the Eagles have adopted, and so not to say it's not a Sirianni thing, but I think he's obviously his input's important. But it sounds like they really are following to a T what Ted Rath and Hunkley have laid out for this organization, and some of it seems unpopular. Like, how do you not practice after having a week and a half off? But I can't, for all the injuries the Eagles have had for the last 2 or 3 years, this has to be one of their better years as far as staying healthy.
Yeah, not kind of on the injury front, but not. Quez Watkins was on the COVID list, and he did get asked about Watkins today. He didn't really give an answer, which was, if Watkins can't play, who kind of takes over that role? Do you have a guess in your mind? I did see John Hightower was one of the guys that was on the protected practice squad list, or whatever the heck that thing is.
Right. I tend to think as we sit here today, it'll be a kind of a committee type thing. Like, I don't think that all of a sudden you bring John Hightower up and you play him the 60 to 65% of the snaps that Quez Watkins used to play. So what I suspect, you'll see some Greg Ward, maybe you'll see some Arthego Whiteside. And I also think you might see more 12-13 personnel packages as well, getting your extra tight ends, Tyree Jackson, Jack Stoll on the field. It would be nice if Tyree Jackson could kind of make a little bit of a pass-catching impact on the game, because so far he's been used mostly as a third tight end, extra blocker in 13 personnel when you're running. It'd be good to start showing those formations and then working some play action off that.
Yeah, that's something to keep an eye on, because flip it over, Geoff Mosher. Washington's decimated right now.
Destroy and bad turn to worse when you saw this morning that Kyle Allen, their backup quarterback who had to get in there last week against the Cowboys, he's now on the reserve COVID list. So you have Taylor Heineke.
They signed somebody today. Tamu? Jonathan.
Was it Josh? I don't know who.
Jonathan Tamu. Where did he play at? I want to say Texas Tech or Texas A&M or something like that.
Sure. Who had Jonathan Tamu versus Gardner Minshew on their bingo card all season?
Right, I did see. Right, they've had like 2 or 3 quarterbacks on the COVID. Their entire defensive line essentially is out. Right.
I mean, yeah, Jordan Tamu. That's right, the Hawaiian TA''AMU thing, or the yes. I assume he's what's the Pacific Islander type thing. But yeah. So I mean. And then the funny thing, not the funny thing, but it's not like Taylor Heineke is 100% healthy. I saw some Washington, John Keim, who covers the Washington for ESPN, quoted Taylor Heineke saying, "Yeah, no, actually my knee is good, but it's my elbow that really is the issue right now." But he did say that it doesn't hurt him when it's throwing. It just, he has bruising there. So that's great. So your starting quarterback's got a bruised elbow. That's all. Eagles starting quarterback has a bruised ankle. That's all. I mean, this is great.
Yeah, by the way, Tamu played at Ole Miss. I was in the right conference, wrong team. All right.
There you go.
So Washington's got all sorts of problems now, as we know. But let me get your, it's hard because they're not healthy. But if Washington is fully healthy, their strength is their defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Eagles like to run the ball. Does that set up well in this situation? Do they say, look, they are so shorthanded on that defensive front, let's just wear them the heck down and just run the ball at them?
Yeah, I think that was going to be the game plan anyway, but I think now you're really thinking about hardcore running attack, and one of your goals is not just to get good yards and do that, but also to wear down a defensive front that will not be very deep or talented if a lot of those guys are out. So run those stretch zones, have them running side to side. I mean, just get them tired. And in fact, Mike, maybe even add a little no huddle in there to make them have to kind of line up quickly and not be able to substitute and keep those tired guys on the field.
Yeah. By the way, Field Yates just tweeted this out, that the Washington football team has up to 18 players on the COVID list right now. I mean, you almost wonder how they field a full team.
Yeah, and we're only today is Wednesday. It sounds like the NFL is Cleveland's going to have to play their game on
Saturday.
And they've got a bunch of guys. I just wonder if there's going to be a tipping point in the next 24 hours where the NFL says, all right, we can't have this product. They wanted the reason why they put all the vaccine protocols in is to avoid these situations. They didn't want to have a game like last year where the Broncos had to start a practice. Kendall Hilton, the practice squad wide receiver at quarterback, just to make it through a game. And they felt that, all the protocols they put in place were going to help avoid that. And we'll see. I mean, obviously it's not a great thing this week. You got a lot of guys who are going to be out.
No, it's quite frankly, and they said, look, they're not postponing games. They would they would basically make you forfeit, right?
I guess. And what if you have a situation where two teams are playing each other and they're both reduced to third stringers?
Well,
luckily,
how do you
penalize one team over the other?
Wait, luckily, you brought up I think on Monday that look, the Eagles traveled and they're coming back. They seem like they've kind of made it clear of not having problem. I mean, Watkins is the only guy, right?
Watkins and, of course, the practice squad running back, Jason Huntley. But, yeah, after that, those are the only guys right now and that they know of. And I think the Eagles are doing a good thing by being precautionary, even though they only have two. And I don't know if you heard, they move their rooms around a little bit. They're doing more team stuff in the bubble where they can be spaced out. They're all going to be wearing masks regardless. So they're trying to avoid the outbreaks that other teams have got, but you know how it is. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's not foolproof,
Well, they say football in general is a battle of attrition. I mean, this is really adding to the list of things that you don't know who's going to be healthy from week to week health-wise, and then you throw this into the mix that you don't even know who's going to be able to be eligible to be played. Like that's the interest. Like the odd part about this is like years ago, the guy was just sick and he was healthy enough to put it this way: if he was ill. But he said, look, I don't care that I'm sick. I'm just going to try to play. You couldn't tell the guy that he couldn't play, but you feel –
now you can't even show up.
Right.
Yeah,
you can feel fine. You can feel fine and say, I want to try to give it a go, and they're telling you, no, you just cannot. It's a whole level of difference here.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's a straight – and listen, this is kind of the first week of it. Who knows what we're going to be talking about next week or the week after. And these are obviously huge games for everybody involved. So you just hope that the league is able to keep this thing under better control than we've seen this week.
Yeah. I just to get your thoughts. I know Heineke's hurt. Allen, he's in COVID, but they do want to run the ball. Like that's something that the Washington football team has done in their win streak. They ran the ball a lot. How does that set up for Philly?
Yeah, I mean, I think this game is going to look like a preseason game, honestly. Not just because of the second and third stringers that are going to be out there, but I think both teams are going to look to try to limit possessions, keep the ball on the ground, protect their deficiencies. I mean, the Eagles have been doing that anyway. You're right, Washington, the same. Now Taylor Heineke's beat up a little bit. So that to me is it favors the Eagles. They have the healthier and way better offensive line and good, stable running backs as long as two of those four guys can play, and they're at home. So I do think that will favor the Eagles.
Okay. What does a win in this game mean for how important is the win for the team that wins this game? What does that do for the playoff possibility?
Well, I mean, it all depends on what other teams that are also 6-7, of which there are many, do over the weekend, right? I mean, obviously, if the Eagles win, they put themselves in a good position where, then you got the Giants coming up and they're really struggling. And if the Eagles can beat them and have those two straight wins, you'd feel better. Yeah, I think you just feel better about – you could even maybe lose that second game against Washington, but if you win the first game and beat the Giants and the Washington game is your slip up, then you might feel better as opposed to just losing this game and then having to face – the Giants and Washington back-to-back there and hoping that you win both.
Right. I think it's important.
Like if you can't beat this Washington team, I mean, I know the Eagles got their own injuries, but if all these guys don't play for Washington and you lose this game, how confident are you going to be that you can beat them the second time around when maybe they're better?
Right. But I think the point you make is a good one, is that there's 4 games. We talked about this yesterday, Moshe. There's 5 teams 6-7.
Mm-hmm.
We looked at all their schedules, and it's far-fetched to assume that any of them is going to go 3-1. So the one team that can figure out a way to get to 3-1, I think that's the team that gets in, because that gets you that 3 wins gets you to 9.
Right. That's what every 6 and 7 team is thinking right now. If we can just be that team that gets the 3 wins,
But winning this game, it allows you to have that slump down the road as opposed to needing to basically win the 3 straight.
Right. I mean, also, if the Eagles lose this game, I mean, you're 0-3 in the division.
Yeah, the tiebreakers
you
are
lose, right, and Washington, all right, with a Jets win sandwiched in there. I mean, the Jets aren't a real team. We know that. I mean, I just think from you look at yourself in the mirror standpoint, if you lose this game and you just think, you know what, we're just not that good. We're really not. I mean, we know that we're not that good, but we're really sure we're not that good.
All right, Sunday, big game. The winner, I think if Philly wins, depends on what Minnesota does, because Minnesota has a tiebreaker over Philly from some wonky strength of victory or some common opponent thing or something to that effect. But if Philly beats Washington, they would leapfrog over Washington, and depending on what happens with Minnesota. And it's a big one. The Philly, did you know, Geoff Mosher, that since Jeff Lurie bought the team, he has beaten the Washington football team more than any other team in the division?
I did not know that.
I did not. I was surprising to me.
Doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't, because I feel like they've just kicked the crap out of the Giants forever, and that the Washington football team has always been like that pain in the ass.
The Giants and Eagles have had some epic battles. The Cowboys, more recently, in the last 5 or 6 years, as opposed to the start of the Andy Reid era, have had some good battles. But I always feel like the Eagles are constantly playing Washington later in the year and beating on. They had Josh Johnson one year. They had Mark Sanchez one year. I mean, I feel like the Washington, the second half of the year is always a fading team, almost, except for last year.
Yeah, but they had. I feel like they always are the team that you feel like, hey, we still play Washington, and they kicked your butt to get Kelly fired on a Saturday. Right. They had another game somewhere recently where they beat you on a Saturday. I don't know. I feel like just that they randomly get in the way.
I hear you.
But 33.
By the way, I got my eye on that. That Falcons 49ers game is really fascinating from an Eagles standpoint, especially if the Falcons win and the Eagles lose, because then the Falcons go ahead of the Eagles game, so that the tiebreaker doesn't really come into play there because they're already a game ahead of you. And then the 49ers would drop to 7-7, which would put them ahead of the Eagles if the Eagles lose. But even if the Eagles win 7-7, that's where the 49ers have. So that game is very interesting to me.
We actually we'll have the Eagles game on, and then when the Eagles game is done, we'll take you to San Fran and Atlanta, because that game, you're right, is big, because if Philly wins, they get to 7-7. Now, San Francisco, if they win, they get to 8-6.
Right.
And if Atlanta loses that game, that would put them in they'd be pretty much done.
Yeah, it'd be rough for them.
All right, should be an interesting. I have a feeling that tiebreakers are going to come into play in Week 17. That's all.
I have a feeling you're right.
All right, Geoff Mosher, check out the Inside the Birds podcast over wherever you get your podcasts, and, of course, InsideTheBirds.com. The Inside the Birds pregame show on Sunday at 10 o'clock on their YouTube channel to get you ready for Eagles and Washington football team. Take care, Mosher.
All right, Mike, take care.
All right, there he goes. Geoff Mosher, everybody, here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.